What's up, everybody? Happy to be back. What's up, Internet? How are you? How are you doing? I'm happy to be back messing around in my 150-gallon aquascaped aquarium. Yes, it's an acrylic tank. It's 2 feet tall. It's 5 feet wide. It's 2 feet front to back. You get it. You understand. You know what's up. That's not really our focus today. Our focus today is all this crazy plant matter in here that needs to get taken care of. It's growing out of control, and I need to do something about it, which means I got to bring my hedge clippers out. Nope, that's tweezers. Anyhow, I got to get my tools out and get this thing trimmed up and get it taken care of. We're going to do a little water change because it's the middle of the week, and I am not going to have time this weekend. Going to be busy this weekend. Ain't got no time for water changes this weekend, so we're doing it now during the week, which is fine. We're happy to do water changes during the week. We don't want to be doing water changes a week late. We'd rather do them a couple days early. I don't know about you guys, but I like to do them a couple days early if I can. Well, as you can see, our first plant of the day that requires trimming is going to be the Propagation erectus, which is pretty common. It's pretty common that this plant needs trimming. Gonna have to trim this one. I don't want to, but I have to. Long term, that's gonna have been a better trim. Let's see, who do we got back here? This big one back here needs a trimming. Boop. And basically what I'm doing is going through and trimming everything that has reached the top of the tank. It's not as though I'm ever going to be able to move the top of the tank, so anything that's up there, it's just too tall, and there isn't much else I can do about it other than trim it, and I could always replant it if I needed to, but I just have so much of this growing in the middle here. It's not going to be important at this point. Oh, you guys hear that? It's a phone alarm. That sound. This sound has been the story of my day today. Alarms, 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 alarms upon alarms. So alrighty, it's going to be pretty good for today, I think, on the Propagation. I think people that have been following along can see the Rotala, like Atra over here. It's actually rebounding really nicely. A little couple strands of hair algae on it. But you know, that's life sometimes. probably my favorite aquarium out of all of them right now. Total collectoritis in this tank. There's just tons and tons of different plants and things going on in here. Also to mention, the guppies, they are breeding and doing fairly well. They don't seem to be out and about right now when I'm filming. Maybe there's a couple lurking behind me, but happy to say we've got some pregnant females in there, so we should have some more fry coming up pretty soon. I'm gonna get to a point where I'm gonna have to make a dedicated guppy mayhem video, but not quite yet. We're not quite to the point where I think, wow, that's insane, I better throw that on the internet. After some basic algae cleaning and spot checking around the aquarium, once I get that all wrapped up, I gotta start figuring out which plants are overgrown in this aquarium. And the first one, the Kupfia anagaloidae. This is a really cool plant that, it has 2 leaves per segment, so it actually doesn't fill out super crazy. It stays this really thin stem, these little tiny cup leaves. I'm really happy to be able to incorporate this in. Now, one of the downsides is it starts to grow tall because it just keeps growing up, and then that means it's time to trim it out of there and replant it. Now, you guys know that I will normally just pull the tops, pull the whole plant out, trim it, replant it. But I don't have a ton of this plant yet propagated, so I am in propagation mode of trimming them out and leaving the rooted piece in the substrate and allowing that to resprout. It really is a pretty basic trick for propagating a plant. It's kind of the easiest way to propagate a plant. You don't really have to do too much. You just allow the plant to grow, trim it off, and then just replant the part that you trimmed off. So it is pretty basic. I think every time I mention these little tips and tricks of how to plant and how to propagate, I think it helps somebody out. So I always try to include it in there. If you've heard it 100 times, well, sorry, but that's basically what I'm doing here. Now, you can notice that I'm much higher off from the substrate because I'm actually planting in, I stuck 2 rocks together and I made basically a big crevasse and I filled it up with substrate, and that's what I'm actually planting in. So it does give this plant a little bit of elevation, so I can keep it at about 6 to 10 inches, 10 inches at max. That's when it's time to trim it. 6 inches is kind of just a healthy height for this plant and allow it to grow. As you can see, I did sort of the same thing over here with the Ludwigia arcuata that is growing in here. It's giving off a really nice little bit of red coloring and basically just adding a splash of different texture in between the Pogostemon and these Cryptocorini and whatnot, and the Anubias and everything else that I got going in that area. Really basic trimming method with that. We're basically just trimming off anything that's too tall and just allowing that which is already rooted to resprout and grow. Nothing too complicated there either. Moving to another part of the aquarium, that which is always overgrown, the Rotella hurrah is always overgrown and almost always a problem. I'm doing some really basic trimming technique here also. I'm not going all super aggressive. I am just selectively picking out that which is growing either in the wrong direction or that which where I don't want it to go, basically. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. So, keeping things in check and shaping this tree, I do kind of go about the slow way of shaping a tree or a bush or whatever you want to call it. Yes, I do kind of go the meticulous route. I don't
don't go super quickly and just, cut things out rapidly and make a big mess. And that's just kind of my style. I don't like to go too quickly with my aquascaping. There are some things that I do that are pretty fast and furious, but when it comes to trimming the plants, I sort of stick with the bonsai method of kind of looking where I cut before I go and cut anything. I know that that's a little meticulous and probably kind of boring to some people, but I've mentioned this in other videos. It is my meditation time. This is kind of my meditative practice throughout the week, to be able to do this and take the time and really take into consideration what I'm doing and make sure that I'm doing it correctly and how I want the end result to come out. And if you're also looking for the end result to come out a certain way, taking your time and just following the best practices is the best advice I could give to anybody. As almost always, I'm having to move and remove Pogostemon erectus, which is ultimately a hilarious plant. I mean, really, this thing grows like wildfire, grows up to the top of the tank, grows out the top, and yeah, it's just an ongoing battle. But it's a great filler and looks awesome, and it is a really cool plant, and it will definitely chew up anything toxic in your water. I mean, maybe not anything, but I'm saying you got a heavy fish load, put this plant in your aquarium. You got excess ammonia, you got excess nitrate, this thing will suck it up like a sponge. You can grow it floating. You could just throw a plant weight on it. You could take a giant bunch of this, throw a plant weight on it, and just drop it in your tank, and it will root and start growing. I mean, of course, if you have a healthy system. But love this plant, but it is constantly a chore. Sort of a never-ending battle, but a good battle. A battle that I like.
Well, we've had ourselves some fun today. 150 gallon style. 150 gallons of aquarium. I'm pretty excited. I'm so excited the dehumidifier is running, which is exciting. Come on now. Just imagine the excitement. Sometimes we have to imagine the excitement while the dehumidifier is running, which is so awesome. That makes me lose my mind. Makes me lose my mind, 'cause I love dehumidifiers. Buy them all on Amazon. Buy them all on Amazon. Oh, what button I hit? Did I turn it off? Okay.